share a little bit about what's going on in our city and some of our successes. And hopefully those are things, adaptive tactics or whatnot, or even just some inspiration that you can take back to your city. Especially, we're excited to tell the story about what happened when we started to become more intentional and focus more on bringing the community's voice and not just the planning process, but the implementation process as well. So before we get started, I'm going to exercise a little Southern etiquette. I don't think I have a Southern drawl, but if I have a Southern drawl, I can show. We're all from Georgia, so thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to give a little introduction of who we are first and foremost. Of the people that you'll be hearing from. First, we have Alex Morrison. His full title would not fit on the screen, but he's our local government representative. He serves in the office of the mayor. He is the director of strategic planning as well as public spaces, and is the executive director of the Urban Development Authority. Macon is his adult home, he is not born and raised there, but has been there since he graduated from one of the private liberal arts colleges in Macon. And then next we have Darius Maynard. He is an OG Maconite. He is born and raised in Macon, went away for college, and then came back and has been working at the Community Foundation of Central Georgia. He is the program officer, so he is really heavily involved in all the granting, applications, and review. And I'm Erin Keller. I work for Newtown Macon, and we are a downtown revitalization group. Started solely to revive the life in downtown Macon. I'm originally from Louisiana, but also like Alex, chose Macon as my adult home after college. So now that we have introduced ourselves, I would like to know who y'all are, but we're going to do this. How many people are from the U.S.? Done. How many people from Canada? Great. Well, now that we're all acquainted, I also first want to give you a little insight to who Macon is, and so that you have a better kind of baseline of where should this come from, and before we get started. So also, please silence your cell phones. These are things that I'm being told to do. Please take the survey. Please remember to take the survey for the session on the mobile app. The surveys you complete, the more points you earn on the leaderboard for the chance to win prizes. Done. Okay, so a little bit about Macon. We are the state's approximate geographic center of the state, hence our nickname, the Heart of Georgia. We are a consolidated government of about 150,000 patrons. And also you can see where the cherry blossom, which indicates Macon's location. We are the cherry blossom capital of the world, boasting about 350,000 and counting Yoshino cherry trees. So yes, can we beat DC, so just glad you're impressed by that. So now you've heard a little bit about Macon. I'll give you a couple of fun facts as well. The music history of Macon is very entrenched in her identity, past, present, and also future. We are the birthplace of the Southern Rock. So if you are familiar, we have several music heroes, hometown heroes. One top right, Allman Brothers, Jason Aldean, Otis Redding, so now the Dr. Bay, left my home in Georgia. Okay. All right, great. And then Little Richard. And he actually grew up in Macon's historic black neighborhood called Pleasant Hill, which you'll hear a little bit about furthermore from Darius. Next, Macon is home to the largest true copper dome in the world. If I'm wrong, at me, I don't. Look at the license though, so fight me on it. It's a small music venue, seats about 2,700,000, sits prominently in downtown, properly adjacent to our city government. In 2007, Oprah made a visit to Macon, and she actually filmed her favorite things episode here. I did not get a card, so. And Macon is also home to the most historic districts in the state. If you're familiar with Georgia, that also includes more than Savannah. We have over 6,000 historic buildings all registered with the National Register of Historic Places. And this one is not one of my favorites. If everybody in Georgia will be cooked with Crisco, but Crisco oil, this is actually the original owner's mansion, Walls Hall. So now that we're a little bit familiar with Macon, I'm going to kind of start to walk you through where Macon has been and also her demise. So, like I said, we're about the centralmost part of the state, so the contiguous counties are very rural. So people look to Macon as the epicenter for entertainment, dining, definitely the beacon of retail. So this is the 30s and 40s, 50s and 60s, and well, we all know what happened in the 70s. The malls. And this is a shot of the inside of the Macon Mall. So like most downtowns, we were no different. All the anchor tenants left and went to the new shiny malls, and actually, after 3 renovations, this was the largest mall in the state of Georgia before the Mall of Georgia opened in the mid-90s. So bustling retail, right? But that also had very harsh consequences for the state of downtown, correct? So as the mall is prospering and people are going to the mall for retail, things change like that for downtown. And this was now what we had to look forward to. Blighted buildings, lifeless. I mean, the roaches and the squirrels had all taken over because there was no life there, right? So in 1996, my organization that I work for, Newtown Macon, was started. We are an extension of the Peyton Anderson Foundation, of which you'll also hear about a little bit later. But the executive director, she decided that we will save downtown. But this was a state of downtown when Newtown was started in 1996. Boarded up buildings, less than 30 residential units, maybe 5 restaurants, and that's only feeding the daytime office building population. Less than a third of our storefronts were occupied at the time. However, I will say our immediate past mayor likened downtown to a traded baseball card, right? So it was worth nothing, but then you put it on the shelf and several years later you bring it down and now it's worth all this cash. And that's really what has been a driving force in downtown Lincoln's revitalization story. Our building stock is a great asset to us, and that's really been the foundation in which we kind of start to get things going. But I will say, I just cannot imagine my predecessors at Newtown, where I walk into work every day, but this is the state of downtown, right? The whole entire community there was no thought of downtown. There was such a disattachment from downtown with the rest of the community. I don't even think that most people thought that there was a downtown, even for the most part. And so, but my predecessors mastered the old adage of, at first you don't succeed, try again. And so several initiatives, they tried to really bring back retail, bring back the heart of the city that was once there. We tried several initiatives. 2 that stick out of mid-2000s, we started First Friday, so I'm sure most of you all do those in your community. Well, the vendors and operators that were there, they were on board. They would hire musicians, do food specials. Well, we're like, man, this is great. We had so much success. People are actually here. How about we make it every Friday? What do you think happened? Completely diluted our own success, right? Another opportunity, we tried to drive businesses into these empty storefronts. So we're like, several years later, we weren't giving away cars. You get $500, you get $500, you get $500. Anybody want some money? If you come, you place your business here in downtown Macon. $2 million several years later, what do we have as a return on investment? Goose egg, right? We're trying to churn things, we're trying to do stuff, but we're still missing something, right? And so failure breeds humbleness. So at first, we have 3 options. After you fail, you can give up, which if you know our founder, that was not an option. B, you can try again. Or C, you can try again and realize this feat is too difficult and too vast to do for one entity, right? And we need a group of people. Spoiler alert, we chose option C. Revitalization is a team sport, And since I've started working at Newtown in 2014, I can definitely attest that one of Macon's superpowers are plants. And I think in this business, we can all agree that plants are very, very important. However, what we have found is that plans that centralize people incorporates a democratic process with those people, well, that has been absolutely transformational for us. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend and urban philosopher, Alex Morrison, to talk about our community-driven plan.
Thank you, Aaron. We were looking for Southerners. So, Scotty, you've heard this one before. Our downtown has so much potential. Man, if only we could get something going. You know what would really get people going in our downtown? A museum. Or a ballpark. Or an office building. You might get some people there, but what you won't get with that silver bullet approach is a sustained notion of the life and soul of your community. A big building like that you use public funding for can be an exciting thing from the groundbreaking to the ribbon cutting, but then it's just a building. In Macon, we tried that too. The Urban Development Authority was founded about the same time that the mall was established, and our first strategies to save downtown were just like anywhere else. We're going to use public bonds to build an 11-story, 16-story office building. That's going to get the jobs here. Neat. People drive in, go to their job, leave at 5 o'clock. You're lucky if they walk down the street for lunch. You're lucky if that happens. So from 5 to 9, nothing. The same situation that you had before. We're going to use our music history or our alleged sports history and build state museums to comment on those things. Well, guess what? They're also only open during the day, programmed as well as they can be programmed. People come. You're lucky if they walk down the street for lunch. But you haven't changed the street light. And that's part of what we kept noticing, right? Is that all of these efforts that we had, whether it was the business grants or it was these big signature silver bullet projects, that they weren't translating into tangible street life. They didn't come with any type of hub of activity. And the reason why those things are true is because businesses are great, jobs are great. But what you really need is people. People are the ones who create the life. People are the ones who fill jobs. People are the ones who open businesses. People are the ones who communicate with each other to form what we know as a city. Cities exist so that people can interact with each other to create commerce. Commerce doesn't create life. Commerce doesn't create a city. Commerce doesn't create a place. We heard that yesterday in the keynotes. We have cities that all look the same because we focus on commerce, not on people. So when we kept banging our head against the wall, we needed to figure out how do we get more people, right? And specifically, how do we get people at night? How do we get people who actually use the city that we're building? Those people were out there, but they were living somewhere else. We needed them to live in our downtown. So we were able to turn all of that historic housing stock, or at least start turning that historic housing stock into residential. The Urban Development Authority, Newtown Macon, and other partners started realizing that if we wanted to create success, it first had to start with getting people to live in the urban core. But that alone wasn't enough. Because, sure, you create a place for them to live, you still have to flesh it out, right? You have to plan for people. And in 2013, we turned that prism around and started planning from that perspective. We started with this thing called the Macon Action Plan. a comprehensive plan, a first time ever comprehensive plan for our urban core that was a people-driven, public-driven approach. How people-driven was it? Well, before we even started doing the plan, we invited citizens of our community to pick the planner. We had a public call for people to submit some proposals for the plan that had the two highest rated firms come present and got voted on. So the people had to pick who was even leading the planning process. And instead of just housing this in one organization, we built a steering committee of 25 people from all different silos. We had residents on the steering committee, business owners, nonprofits, city government leaders, people from the utilities, people from the philanthropic sector. We tried our best to build a cross-silo approach of people who are going to be core to that plan. And we built a robust public process for developing those strategies. We also did something that hadn't been done before. We created a larger geography for what we considered the urban core, to not just include the downtown core where the really cool buildings were and some of the high-rises were, but also getting the first neighborhoods in there so that we can have a diverse housing stock incumbent in the plan, built into it. And we acknowledged the fact that there were a bunch of efforts before, that we weren't breaking new ground. We knew that things were happening, but we had to align them in a way that really sung to the people who were in our community. So we had to build it off the backs and the ideas of the people who were there. And when we say we invited people to be a part of this plan and to share it in this process, we don't mean we had a couple of public meetings at City Hall where we said, hey, come tell us what you think. We went to them. We went to public events. We set up an entire workshop in one of those museums we built in the 90s and invited people to come in and give us feedback all during the day. It was open from 11 o'clock a.m. to 6 o'clock, 5 days a week for people who wanted to come in and give input on the plan. Then we had big events around it. In the end, we went to over 50 public meetings in 3 different counties and had 2,500 individual citizens give input in the plan. That's a lot of people for a public process. Maybe you've had others that seem bigger, but 2,500 out of 150,000 is a pretty high percentage when you can generalize off of a number of 30. 2,500 seems like a lot. And they gave us all of this data. They gave us this wonderful approach that we could use to come up with what we wanted to see in our community. And every time we asked people what they wanted, we listened, and you could tell through our process that we were building a plan for people. We made sure that this wasn't just your ordinary plan that had pretty pictures of things that might happen, that things could happen. It was one that really sung to our community, that reflected the people who gave input in the plan, and really spoke to the action that we needed, that action that was going to make our plan work. And so people could see the things that they wanted in that. And in the end, after all of that public comment, we came up with these 5 basic strategies. Now there's an Easter egg in here, I'll tell you in a minute. But when we went out to the community, the number one thing that they told us time and time again was they wanted an experience in the urban core. Experience is a lot different from they want a job or a loft. Experience says they want the public space to communicate their values. They want parks and green spaces that work. They also want trash that gets picked up. We wanted to focus more on downtown living. We wanted to increase that housing stock that we'd already been working on as a baseline for why this plan was necessary, but have diversity in that, homeownership opportunities, incorporate the neighborhoods in a more robust way. We wanted to support the engines of economic development because people do, in a capitalist society, need to earn money to live in a place. So continuing to focus on things like the fact that the highest concentration of jobs in our community is in our urban core, so building off of that. Cultivating connectivity. is a big one. How do you get these neighborhoods together? How do you make sure that the entryways in and out of the downtown are communicable to the public, they make you have a sense of arrival, and an ease of moving through the community? So things like bike lanes, things like signage, and the most important thing in any downtown, parking meters. And finally, taking action for implementation, coming up with some zero strategies that you need to get a plan going. So things like implementing a bid, things like having a team that meets regularly to analyze the plan. And we were so intentional about making sure that we communicated the wants and desires of our community that this isn't even the final version of those action steps. If you go onto the Make an Action Plan website and download the plan, you'll see that number 3 actually became number 1 in the last minute. But we kept going back. So we created a plan for the people. But the next step was the most important step of all, to make sure that we were building the type of community that we can be proud of. And that was inviting the public to implement the plan as well. And to tell you about how we did that, I'm going to introduce Darius Winger.
Thank you, Alex. Good afternoon to everyone. How are y'all? Good. Doing good. Y'all awake? Yes, we are. Good deal. There's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go what?
Alone.
Go alone. If you want to go far,
Go together.
go together. That's true for people, but also plans and processes. So we have this beautiful, powerful Make an Action Plan. And with a name like that, you couldn't just let it sit on the shelf. It has to have some action behind it. So we came up with the Downtown Challenge 1.0, which we utilized to implement this plan. So we came up and discovered that we had a recipe for success, one that we now refer to as the power of the P's. Those are the things that help come together to make this plan and process a success. First was partnership and philanthropy. Again, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Newtown started out trying to do this alone. We figured out, going with item number 3, we need to do this with more people, do it together. Going forward with the UVA as well, including more people in the process as well. Partnering, philanthropy. Partnership also among our philanthropic organization, our philanthropic community. Macon-Bibb County is blessed to have 4 grant-making institutions. 3 of them came together to create the Downtown Challenge, which was our vehicle to help implement the Make an Action Plan. As you can see, the Community Foundation is the overseer of this program. It was generously funded by the Knight Foundation and Peyton Anderson Foundation. Generously funded. $1.5 million from Knight, $1.5 million from Peyton Anderson, and together they combined to make how much?
$3 million.
$3 million. All right? That wasn't $3 million that we were just going to throw out there and hope that things were going to happen. These were $3 million that were strategically placed and partnered with the Make an Action Plan. So we thank the Knight Foundation and Peyton Anderson Foundation for their generosity, and we give them a hand round of applause for their great. So $3 million to help crowdsource implementation of the what? Make an Action Plan. You have your plan, and now you have this grant program. And they're working what? Together. They exist together to make sure that we're reviving our downtown as we need to. As you see these beautiful people on the screen, 2 of them are in the room today. Wave your hands, 2 people. Alex Morrison from the UVA and Josh Rogers from Newtown Macon. Then you also have representatives from those 3 foundations in the middle. Former Macon representative for Knight Foundation, Beverly Blake, now represented by Lynn Murphy. The president of the Community Foundation, Captain Dennis, and then the president of the Peyton Anderson Foundation is Karen Lambert. As we always keep alluding back to, what? People, people, people. Say it with me. People, 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 people. People are the foundation of any community. You cannot have a community without what? People. People. That's what we honed in on. That's what we leaned in against. People. That's what we bet on. People. We wanted their ideas. We wanted their creative perspectives and outlooks and vision to help revive that dead downtown that you saw in the pictures previously. We could not do it without the collective thoughts and action of the what? People. So we really went all out about this thing. So with this grant making program, we offered $3 million over the course of a couple of years to help implement your ideas, to help bring back our dying downtown, to revive our downtown. Because we all knew collectively what we wanted to see in our downtown so that we can feel that we were a part of it. That was the magic thing. So we made these wanted signs, as you can see, had different things: improve connectivity, to make downtown more festive, to make alleys more appealing. And we gave awards for it. How many of you would like to see your face on one of the wanted signs? You're not going to jail with this one. Then, of course, if you have a process, you have to have a plan behind it, and you have to be committed and stick to that plan. And we certainly were. By being strategic in going out and identifying and publicizing and communicating this program as well as this plan to the people, we were able to make our first steps into reviving that downtown, so that it can no longer look like the pictures that you saw earlier, but look more like this. A place where people wanted to come. A place where people wanted to live. A place where people wanted to work. A place where people wanted to come for entertainment and food and fun. And we did just that. By having a commitment to reviving our downtown. By having a commitment to the Make an Action Plan. By having a commitment to funding the ideas of the people to help implement the Make an Action Plan, we were able to make so much progress in pushing that plan forward. So much so that within that first program, we received 390 applications. Let me tell you how much the commitment was from the people to the plan. That was a total of $17 million in requests. 17,390 applications. For the Community Foundation, we did not see applications in that volume. 17 million in requests. But as you remember, we only had how much to give away? 3 million. So we had to do a lot of reading and reviewing and asking questions and follow up as well. But we had a commitment to the people, and the people had a commitment to us and the plan, and we were able to make a lot of progress on it. But there was still something else missing. I want to turn it over to Alex to let you know what that was.
So, 390 applications pared down to $3 million worth of requests. It was a lot of action, a lot of turning that potential into kinetic energy and making it. And we were very successful in that regard. The original Make an Action Plan had a 10-year time horizon. And over the 4 years of planning and 3 years of the 4 years total, 3 years of that were downtown challenge, 92% of the Make an Action Plan was completed or significantly underway. Just an insane speed of progress for a planning process. But even within that 92% happening, we realized that we were not necessarily asking the right question. Because we went in 2013 with the charge from the foundations to turn potential into action, make something happen in downtown Macon. But what we learned through that process was that we needed to be asking the question, how do we ensure that the right things are happening in downtown Macon? Because that steering committee of 25 people, most of them looked and sounded like me. And I don't just mean with a cute Southern accent. There were people who were not at that table, who needed it. And we heard loud and clear that we still were missing the majority population of our community in our urban core. that specifically Black residents of Macon did not feel like downtown revitalization was for them or from them. So we knew that we had to go back. We had to go back to the community and do a refresh of the Macon Action Plan and make sure that we centralized the right things. So we went back to the community, did another public process, a completely different public process. Not by going to public meetings or looking for Rotary clubs to speak to, or by having an open house in a museum, but by going into neighborhoods where we knew that we needed to do work and talking to people directly. By setting up in the most diverse event that happens in Macon, Georgia, the Christmas lights, and asking people very simple questions to get the feedback about the plan in downtown that they want to see the rest of the year. And how to build a community that is truly inclusive and one that's answering that question over and over again. How do we ensure that the right things are happening? The invitation to the process had to be more intentional. And so that's why we went back out and did that. We discovered through that process that those 5 big strategies, economic development, experience, living, connectivity, and implementation, were still the right things. But we needed to apply new lenses to the work. The number one thing that changed from 2014 to 2019 in the planning process was somehow there's 25 people, like 2,500 people seem to have like a lot of kids. So they kept saying we want places to not just drink beer, but drink beer where our kids can have fun too. They wanted to have more fun, more activities, more intentional family-friendly programming in the urban core. So a more kid-friendly or age-friendly urban core became a much larger importance to how we built our downtown. Second, a more inclusive urban core. One that truly reflected the fact that we do have a diverse population and a downtown that could greatly benefit people of all different backgrounds if we just turn the prism a little bit more and create an intentional invitation. So things like how we built out our public space, which, you know, our downtown had 2 partial Confederate monuments and then recently, like that had to change. That those sorts of things had to be on top of the table and discussed and addressed in an earnest way. We need to have a more, and important here, I almost got ahead of myself. A key piece of inclusivity that we heard loud and clear from the population is that inclusivity had to include affordability. Affordable housing had to be a part of our plan, and making sure that the businesses that we're recruiting understand the income levels of the broader community. Not just the people who work at the hospital, not just the lawyers, but the entire community needed to be reflected in the businesses that we were recruiting as well. One way to do that, of course, is to have a more creative urban core, centralizing the arts, tourism, and thought-based economy into how we're recruiting and growing spaces for jobs in our urban core. So having things like a music study or an office for film became very important. Then a greener urban core, loud and clear, more sustainability, plant more trees, have a greener streetscape, and that those alleys need to have some type of stormwater treatment and other things to make sure that we're building a sustainable and inviting urban core for all people. Because again, that's something that people who are younger than me value greatly in the cities that they're looking to move to. So that became a vital part of it. And we had to change our action strategy. So the first version of Make an Action Plan had 125 action steps in those 5 buckets. The second version pared down to 25. 25 in those 4 lenses to more address the heart of the concerns. In Make an Action Plan 1, when we moved around economic development to number 1, the 1.1 strategy of that plan was to ensure that the hospital had a well-defined campus. Important, sure, We don't want people to think the hospital is going to buy their property if the hospital is not going to buy their property. That can stymie development. 1.1 of making an action plan 2.0 is celebrating the growing Black-owned businesses. Saying that the number one thing that the aligned partners of this plan want to do is make sure that we're growing from that strength and from that population. And what's key about that is the verbs aren't things that can be done in one shot. You don't just say, yay, Black-owned business. It's consistent action. It's not one thing. It's a change in the heart of what you're trying to do. Other action strategies that came out of this plan that reflect that are having a true effort to incorporate how tourism and film can work into our urban cores, job creation, and also having pathways for people who are experiencing homelessness to find pathways out. How are we doing that? This plan calls for creating a housing trust fund for affordable housing, something that has actually gotten steam from those foundations because it existed in this plan. We have centralized building a diverse team of people who are implementing the plan by inviting more people into these meetings, by changing up how we read grant applications, and building structures for our own organizations that make sure that we're reaching out to a new population and making sure that people feel like they're comfortable in our organizations. And of course, we still have to have the really big ones. The 25th most important action step of that plan is rewriting the zoning code. We still got some more. Important. But as you can see, we applied these lenses to communicate the fact that we have to keep coming back to who is this plan for? Who is downtown for? And if the answer to that question isn't everyone, you are wrong. You are doing work the wrong way if you cannot say that your downtown is for everyone in your community. And that was a tough pill to swallow, that we weren't hitting that mark. But we went back and we tried again. We got more people involved. And to tell you a little bit more about what that intentionality of the plan did, I'm going to bring back up Darius to tell you about the Downtown Challenge too.
One of the things I love about Macon-Bibb County and the people of Macon-Bibb County is that we are committed to having those tough discussions. There are some things that people shy away from talking about, like race, religion, gender, things of that nature. Macon-Bibb started out that way, but we have grown, baby. We have grown. And we're having those discussions. And because we're having those discussions, we're able to go back and look and see, just like the plan, we were leaving out specific groups of people. In the grant program, just like the plan, we were leaving out specific groups of people. So we worked together to completely change the review committee, the committee that was committed to implementing and helping to guide the Macon Action Plan. We put younger people on. No offense to anybody, I'm old too. We're committed to drink a lot of water. We're committed to putting more people of diverse backgrounds, different walks of life on this committee so that we can have a representation inside of our applicants as well, in our applications. We were also committed to going out past communities where we were more comfortable in presenting and marketing this brand and program to. Of course, this was during the time of the pandemic, so we were able to do a couple of things on Zoom, which brought in more people than we ever thought we would ever see in the physical space. But on nights and weekends, when there were basketball games, community, neighborhood association meetings, we were there. As the referees were running along the sidelines, I was running right along the side and say, hey, Downtown Challenge. We were there. We were in those spaces where essentially we were meeting people where they were. To make them knowledgeable and aware of an opportunity for them to see themselves in our new downtown. We needed them. We needed everybody. We needed to work together. So that's what we did. And in doing that, we realize that there is power in numbers. And that if we were intentional, we say it 3 times and we say it the 3rd time together. We were what? Intentional about crowdsourcing. We reached out as far as we could to as many people as we possibly could. We marketed through the Making Black pages. We marketed through the churches. We marketed in the storefronts, in websites, in newspapers. We went in those communities. And our efforts paid off. 1.1 of the Making Action Plan was to celebrate and grow Black-owned businesses. This was a community in downtown that I did not even know about. It was not on a map of Macon that I had ever seen before. This is Greenwood Bottom. That's what it's named. A Black business district in our downtown urban core. There was so much significant investment now going into Greenwood Bottom through the Downtown County Making Action Plan that they were able to do everything you see here. But that was just a start. That was seed money for them. These were business-minded people, like-minded people. And they were able to keep that success and that energy going. They're still having events at this location daily, weekly. Pleasant Hill neighborhood. Remember the open session yesterday? There was a Black community here that was impacted by the federal highway system. So was Pleasant Hill neighborhood. This was a community of Black business owners, doctors, lawyers, you name it. And someone came up with the right idea to smack I-75 right through the middle, split it in half. And you know the deteriorating impact that that had on that community. A lot of investment through the Making Action Plan Downtown Challenge 2.0 went into the Pleasant Hill community. Today, not only are they rebuilding dilapidated houses, tearing down blight, utilizing activated green spaces, they're growing. People are coming back to Pleasant Hill. New people are moving into Pleasant Hill because they're committed to reviving that neighborhood of our downtown and urban core. The commitment of the people drove this success. And as we continue to go, we just had our last deadline for our final round of Downtown Challenge. And I can't wait to see what the results are. But out of the first 2 rounds, where we were able to fund 40-something applications, 32 of those awards went to people of color. Not because we felt that we had some obligation to only fund people of color, but because these people, they came with their ideas. And they were committed to implementing those different areas of the Making Action Plan. And they were solid, great ideas. And because of their passion and commitment to the plan and to Downtown Challenge, the success and growth of our downtown and urban core, man, I invite y'all all down now to see me. To walk downtown, there's not a street you can step on in downtown and not see something that was paid for by the Downtown Challenge. There's no change or revitalization, in my opinion, that did not come from the impact and the great work and action of the Making Action Plan. Be intentional. That's what we learned. I'm going to bring Alex back up to talk about some more lessons that we learned along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. As we continue through this process, we've learned about the fact that you have to be intentional. You have to look at who's around the table when you're making these decisions, and ensuring that you're hearing from all voices. You have to be consistent and putting out that call to everybody, because crowdsourcing isn't just, hey, what do you think? What do you want? I mean, I've had that meeting. Yeah, we are from Macon, Georgia. I've gone to every neighborhood in Macon and used to ask the question, well, what do you want in your neighborhood? You know what they want? Chick-fil-A. That's not the right question. It's not the right question. You have to ask about what would improve your life. What would make it easier for you to get through the day? What would make it easier for you to have generational wealth? That's what crowdsourcing is. It's an invitation to collaborate, to make sure that people are invested in it. And then reciprocity is the key. You have to earnestly listen. You can't assume that you already know every answer. It's easy to do. You're the expert. But you have to be earnest in asking the questions and show people that their ideas are reflected in the planning process and the implementation. And what you also have to do is make sure that you're hearing from enough voices and that you're not letting people in these neighborhoods speak for too many people. Because while no one's experience is universal, everyone's experience is instructive. I mean, even if they don't know everything that they're telling you, you can still glean some truth from them. And you must be willing to do things that there's no precedent for. Like, some of the ideas that we had were things like, we're going to have a dance party underneath a railroad bridge. But what did that do, Darius? Brought back a diverse crowd like nothing you've ever seen.
Yeah. Don't forget about the big old Christmas lights.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Like, we're not lying. So the guy in the one picture in the middle, we thought he was crazy. He asked for $150,000 to put Christmas lights in our downtown. So, but Christmas in downtown Macon now is such a big thing that how many people? 250,000 people come in the month of December
Annually.
just to see our Christmas lights that are synced to locally sourced pop orchestra. It's crazy.
There's 250,000 people, and along those lights are what? Restaurants, businesses, all that are now attracting people not just from Macon, Georgia, but from all over. So they're being impacted economically as well.
Right. And one thing, a lesson learned that we have come to realize is we've told this to a lot of cities. We did a pilot run for this story, and we talked about Knight Foundation, Peyton Anderson Foundation. Well, we don't have that, so we can't do it. That's not true. You have the people, then you have the right resources. We're going to bring back Aaron to tell you what that translates to at the end of the day when you put the right groundwork in place.
Thanks. So the map has done tangible things, as you all heard, seen, Darius echoed, but the intangibleness of the Macon Action Plan, I'm not sure if we actually prepared for that, right? We are no longer the biggest champions for downtown, right? Dr. Godsey, he is Newtown's founding board chair and stalwart in our community and wisdom for years. But he said years ago that our entire community was stagnated by a dying downtown. Let me say it one more time. Our entire community was stagnated by a dying downtown. And the map is what really re-energized people because for one, I gave a presentation when I first started this job and I said, you know what? Some of the worst thing about Macon are some of the people that live in Macon. We were our own worst enemies, but creating better trust, there was action. People felt like there was ownership, right? And so now you have these people that, now, don't get me wrong, people love downtown, but we still got naysayers. And if we always need to be humble, there's always the Facebook comment section, okay? So we still have naysayers, but we turn doubters into dreamers into believers and believers into downtown champions. That makes our job so much more easy, right? And the tangibleness of reigniting people's pride in their own city, and going back to what Dr. Godsey said about the whole entire community was stagnated by dying downtown. Well, look at Greenwood Bottoms, Darius just mentioned. Pleasant Hill, they have their own master plan. People saw what was possible in downtown because you saw the pictures. I mean, this is less than 20 years ago. You saw the pictures, but people saw action and they saw success and like, well, why can't we have that in my neighborhood? And so again, in true economic development, you see the ripple effect and people really believing what is possible when we are all on the same page and we're all pulling together resources. Because, as Gary said earlier, if you want to go
fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together.
And that was a really big turning point for us. And I think it's just very special because what else, it goes back to people, right? So we could have all this money, we can have all these foundations, and we can do all these things, but if we didn't have people to come and apply, to come and give their voice, there's no action. So the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation commissioned this study in May of 2020, and it's easily Googled. You can just Google it, but it's called Community Ties, Understanding What Attaches People to the Places That They Live In. And this was really interesting to read in preparation for this presentation because these are the key findings that they mentioned in the executive summary: boosting time in the city center, focus on improving the quality of life, and attention to equity. I mean, we didn't know that, but that's exactly what MAP has done for our community, right? And so, one of the things that further finding, I'm gonna go back to the top one, boosting time in the city center. So further finding is that local, regular programming in the urban core, in your downtown, potentially will change the sense of attachment. Because if you're bringing people from the outskirts, from the suburbs or whatnot into your downtown, well, now they're getting the experience, going back to the experience, that they can't get anywhere else in your city, right? So let's go to this slide real quick. Not the laser. What you're looking at here is, it says some cities attract more residents than others. Shared residents by frequency of time spent in the principal city. So this study, if you're familiar with Knight Foundation, they prioritize 26 cities. And then 8 of those cities actually have staff members. Okay, so in this study you have national, they compare national data and then the 8 cities that they have program staff in. So as you can see, nationally says 42. The second bar is Macon at 80. Okay, so honestly, this is a moment for me. I was like, oh my gosh, because sometimes we're in this work day to day, and we don't really take a step back and actually see the transformation that's being happened because we're hamsters, we're in the wheel, and we're just going. But at some point, it's okay to stop and take a second and pat yourself on the back and realize, like, wow, this is major change, and it's happening in our community, and it's happening really, really fast. And the success of the Macon Action Plan has definitely expedited our revitalization success. So I'm gonna change gears just a little bit, drop the numbers, and I'm gonna give you some anecdotal stories real quick. So this is Patrick and Lauren. They are originally from Kentucky. They had actually been living in the Tampa Bay area because it was during the pandemic, so they were actually driving home to Kentucky, stopped in Macon, rubbed elbows with the right people at the bar, and actually happened to be their future landlords, and they decided they had a really good experience. They caught the vibe, they're like, man, this is a really cool city. A year later, they opened Macon Bagels. You love a Macon pun. Macon Bagels, y'all with me? Just celebrated their first year anniversary in July. And also in July, they celebrated the Taste of the South magazine, actually featured them in their annual Taste of 50, which, it's like the 50 places that make the South delicious or whatnot, and they respectfully came in at 29. My boss was just in New York and they had a bagel. They didn't even finish the day goal. They have ruined it. I'm just saying, that says a lot, right? That says a lot. But Patrick and Warren, outsiders have no clue, literally just stopped at Macon. If you're familiar with Macon, sits on the intersection of a bypass and two interstates. So we normally get people, they know Macon for a good gas stop and a Chick-fil-A on right off of two exits. But if you get off and you come downtown, you see something different. And they did that. And now they're in Macon, business owners, and they actually, their storefront, there's 3 floors of lofts above it, and they live right above it. Any football fans? I know we're in Canada, but this is NFL. This is Bud Dupree. He was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Currently plays for the Tennessee Titans. Macon, homegrown. Obviously, this guy's been everywhere. Played several places, lived several places. He decides he wants to open up a business concept. Where does he open it? Downtown Macon. This is a concept that we had not seen in downtown. And he wanted to bring back a experience that people from his community probably that are not able to travel elsewhere to receive this type of experience. And he was very intentional from the aesthetic side as well as the menu side. And so now we have a Black-owned, Black-operated, metropolitan feel, like upscale feel restaurant. Lastly, for the first time in a little over a decade, Macon is finally home to a walkable hotel in the CBD. Huge flashpoint for us. And this actually going back to the historic districts, this actually was the immediate prior use was a government annex building. And it is now a 94-room boutique hotel. It's under the Marriott Tribute collection. Everything from inner decor to the name to all the paintings and everything is all Macon-centric. All Macon-centric. And so I think the biggest thing and biggest takeaway besides people, but obviously this is not a blueprint, but more just like a challenge of what's going on in your community. This whole entire conference is about reinventing communities for tomorrow. Not yesterday, not our grandmother's downtown, but what is it for today? And so going back to, dear Dr. Godsey, and I think this is a really good, it's very, very true to what we all need to be doing going forward, because as sad as COVID was, and as grueling as COVID was, and depressing as COVID was, as downtown practitioners, we have an opportunity. We have a clean slate. We can rewrite the rules, right? And so this is a great opportunity to go back to your cities and say, let's shake it up. Let's do things different. And so here Dr. Godsey says, normally I don't read quotes off screen, but this is well worth it. A community has to be continually refounded, reinvented, recreated, and that can only happen if we foster entrepreneurial thinking. And going forward, there's AC after COVID, and there's BC before COVID. But for AC, this is what we need to be focused on as downtown practitioners going forward. We've always got to change things. We've always got to do something. And we've always got to go back to the community to really feel like, because we think we know, but let's be real. Sometimes we really don't know. I mean, there are those people that you don't want to hear from, but then there's some people that you really should take into account, and they just want to hear their voice heard, right? So with that, we'll take some questions. Come on.
Boom!